I'm Jane Applegath. This is the Epic Vision Zone, where bold ideas meet extraordinary leaders. What if the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one was simply the courage to embrace the story of you? And what if becoming just 1% better every day could completely transform your future? Today, we welcome a remarkable author, storyteller, and creator of possibilities whose life has been driven by curiosity, creativity, and the belief that stories have the power to change us. Natalie Saar is a Los Angeles-based journalist, author, artist, content creator, and publisher who has captivated audience not only by writing books, but by giving people permission to create their own stories. A lifelong lover of mystery, human behavior, and the unexpected twists that make life fascinating, Natalie is the author of 9 books. She has spent more than 15 years mastering both fiction and nonfiction, weaving together suspense, insight, and imagination. Her acclaimed nonfiction book, Becoming 1% Better, explores the small shifts that create meaningful transformation. The book is a finalist in the prestigious Chanticleer International Book Awards for Mind and Spirit Nonfiction. Whether she's creating thrillers that turn into epic adventures or exploring the psychology of personal growth, Natalie reminds us that every great transformation begins with a single idea and willingness to follow it. She says, writing is a form of magic, the ability to create worlds, inspire change, and breathe life into stories that don't exist before they were placed on a page. Welcome, Natalie. Thank you for joining us here today.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, likewise, and what a bio. Oh my gosh. I was talking to Natalie just earlier and I'm very excited to delve into this topic because as I was telling her, I love reading books and I'm a writer at heart. So let's get started. How did you get inspired and started writing books?
Yeah, I've always been a storyteller ever since I was a little girl. Like before I could write, I would make my parents and my family watch me put on little puppet shows and stuff using sock puppets that my mom made. I just always really loved telling stories. And then as I grew up, you have all these little competitions when you're in school, like not competitions, but like science fair or whatever, and they would do some for storytelling. And so I just loved writing stories. I think probably the first one I made was in like, I don't know, first, second, or third grade. And it was like a person on a covered wagon. Like, but I just loved it. And I had the best time writing it. And ever since then, I just really loved writing stories on like construction paper. I would staple them together. I remember in middle school, we learned the difference between like short stories, novellas, and novels. And we were supposed to write a short story. And I turned mine in, and everyone else's was like 5 pages long. And the teacher was like, Natalie, this is 16 pages long. And it was like this sci-fi. I couldn't even tell you what it was about now, but I just always loved writing. It's one of those things where like I couldn't stop if I wanted to. So yeah, that I just from there when I grew up, I knew I wanted to write. I moved to Los Angeles. I'm from a small town about 2 hours south of here with no traffic, about 4 hours with traffic. It I just knew that, if you want to write, that's where you have to be is Los Angeles. And so, because I thought I would want to do movies or screenplays based on some of my college classes. And then just being here, I was like, I just like writing everything, and screenplays are still great, and I love those too. But there's just something really special. Um, yeah, and so I love writing. I could go on and on and on about how much I love writing and what this journey's been like, but I'll stop there.
Well, yes, that's wonderful. It's basically, something that's within you and you just have to let it out. So, I mean, that's so organic, which is beautiful. Well, there's a lot of people I know, and most likely yourself and around the world that are listening that are always wanted to be authors. And I'm curious now, what story about yourself did you have to stop believing to become the person that you are today?
Yeah, so back in the day, there wasn't really like a popularized name for it, but it would be imposter syndrome, right? Something that we
Mhm.
all deal with. I think it's really easy to think I'm not good enough or I don't have enough experience or like, who am I to do this? And in like 2012, that's when I published my first book. And Amazon had just started, it was called Create Space back then. It's KDP now, but it was their self publishing platform. And I was like, I know a good story and I know how to write one and I'm just going to do it and I'm going to publish this. And so I did. I didn't have any money, I didn't have any budget. I like to tell people the story a lot because I think that money is a big thing. It's a big excuse that people use to not do something, right? Because
Mhm.
that's what stops us a lot of the time is we find a really, really good excuse not to do something. And I did it with $0, and I'm really proud of that. And I like to tell people that. Is it a like earth-shattering book? No, but do I still have a lot of people who tell me it's one of their favorite books that they've read? Yeah, I do. Kind of surprisingly to me, to be honest with you. I I just yeah, I'm just really proud of that, and I hope other people can get over their fear of not being enough. Because the thing is, I think we all kind of think of ourselves as little kids sometimes still, like inside of us, we still feel like we're inferior and like kind of too young and too inexperienced. And the only person who gets to decide when that stops is you. Like you're the one who gets to decide when you're finally good enough or experienced enough or whatever it is, you know? And every single person watching this right now has enough experience to do something right now if they wanted to. So, yeah, that's pretty much the main thing that I had to overcome was like I guess the
Right.
fear of being seen too, which I still work on, but that was it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I think we often use the money or the time as the excuse because it is very convenient. But well, that being said, you said that with that when you published your ninth book, it brought up some of the same fears as publishing your first. So what has writing taught you then about courage and vulnerability and being seen? You just mentioned that one of the things that you were that kept you back was being seen. Has writing taught you to take a step out of your comfort zone and be more courageous and vulnerable?
I think definitely because if you write something, you want people to read it, which means you have to tell people about it. But I think no matter what, writers are kind of wearing our hearts on our sleeves, right? Even if it's a nonfiction book, you're still putting pieces of yourself along the way. And I think it's a natural thing for readers to critique what they read, right?
Mm.
That's kind of like an adjacent activity to the reading of the book, right? That's why we have book clubs to talk about the books and things like that. So you put out a book knowing some people are going to hate this or whatever it is, and you have to like it. You have to like it so much that you think it deserves to exist in this world. And that's just really scary to know that you're putting something out there that you believe in so much, that you put so much effort and so much energy into. And of course, you hope a lot of people like it. And certainly, I've been like lucky enough that more people like my books than don't like them. Many who like them as much as I do, which is, just the best feeling in the world. But it is
Mhm.
scary because people are not going to like them. And the more people that see you, the bigger the audience there is for that, right? Like you'll put up a social media post or whatever it is, or a podcast or anything, and you'll have 27 really positive comments about how it changed their life, and then you'll have one comment that says, "I hated that guest," or like whatever it is. And that's the one that is the hard one. It's like, oh man, should have done that better. But you have to just do it and you have to do it over and over again because putting it out there is a incredibly authentic expression of yourself.
Mm.
And like, what are we here for if not to be authentic expressions of ourselves?
Mm. I love that, Natalie. That is beautiful. An authentic expression of yourself. And you're right. I mean, it's a mindset shift. If you go forward and believe that, this is going to be my piece of work, some will like it, some won't. But just have the positive mindset that it will. I mean, that's what the universe is going to hear, because you're right. We're here to share, and that's how we humans learn, is through story more than anything. So yes, beautiful. Thank you for expressing that, and I agree 100%. Well, what advice then do you have for people who want to self-publish? Because I know there's two sides to that coin as well.
Yeah, my advice, of course, is just number one, do it. Like, don't doubt yourself, just do it. It could take you a few months, it could take you a few years, however long it takes you. The important thing is to just say, I'm just going to do this. Whether it's a children's book or whether it's a thriller novel, like I write cozy, I pivoted into cozy mysteries and then into nonfiction. And I think there's a lot of you'll find people on like any side of this discussion that say like you should pick one genre and stick with it, right? Like the famous example of this is Nora Roberts, who also writes as JD Robb, because Nora Roberts is known for a specific genre and JD Robb is known for a specific genre. So the pros do this, but the thing that's nice about publishing and self-publishing in particular is that you get to tell your story the way that you want to. And it doesn't have to be what's popular in the zeitgeist right now. It doesn't have to be um, like agents sign people based off of what the market's looking for, right? And maybe your book isn't popular in the market right now. Like your type of story isn't popular that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to exist. And I think that's one of the most wonderful things about self-publishing and the self-publishing community is that you could have a genre bending story and it is a perfect place for it to land in the self-publishing community, because that's why people look to self-published authors, is because they want something that's a little different than what they might find from traditionally published authors. So I would say, just do it. Again, like going back to what I said before, there are excuses for every single reason why you should not do anything in life, and self-publishing is no different. It is a lot of work. I'm not going to say it's not a lot of work. It is. It took me years to come up with like a method that I use over like a repeatable method, but it's totally worth it. And I think that everybody should give it a try, because the more stories we have out there, the more chance that we all have to like build empathy and learn from each other. That's why we all are drawn to different types of books.
Yes, yeah, I love that. It's the self-publishing gives yourself the opportunity to find original works of art, because I believe writing is
Yes.
an art. Whereas, like you said, the publishers, obviously, just like in the film industry, they want to go with something that's more guaranteed, something that's, hot right now. And if you have a mixed genre that, it doesn't really have doesn't fit in the peg, they're like, well, you have to change this because it doesn't fit here and it doesn't fit there. And it's like, well, but that's exactly why I want it to be the way it is. So yeah, I could see that. I know that there's pros and cons, and there always is, but I love that the self-publishing world is where you find a lot of where you find more original works for sure. Well, what is one thing that you wish you knew at the beginning of your publishing journey?
So I learn something new every time I publish a new book, and I think that that answer changes each time. I think in general, what I wish that I knew at the beginning was, this is probably like not a super encouraging answer, but that it is really hard. I think that I thought it was as easy as pushing a few buttons and that's it. And I think as the world has changed and we've continued to with AI and all of this stuff, um, it's just really hard. It's really hard to stand out, and it's really hard to market yourself, and you're going up against a lot of people, and frankly, like companies and publishing houses who have huge marketing teams behind them. And that part's really difficult. And so I think I wish I'd been more realistic about that at the beginning. I think people see or hear how many books that, like, I have 9 books, and I think people are like, wow, like, you probably like like, this is all that you do and things like that. It's like, honestly, if I have a $10 month, I'm having a good month. Like, the money is not why I'm doing this. So I think just being more realistic about that at the onset, because everyone should get excited about what they're doing. And it is easy to get really excited and be like, this is it. I'm going to publish this book and I'm going to be the next best thing. I'm writing the next great American novel, whatever it is. And that is the wrong reason to do it. I guess that's the one thing. That's kind of a roundabout answer, but that's been the hardest thing to deal with, is just uh, that initial, this, I thought that this would go faster, and you can't write a book if that's what you're trying to get out of it. You have to do it because you love it. And I can genuinely say all the rest of them I wrote after my first one were for the love of it, because I had such a good time with the first one after I got over that disappointment.
Well, that's good information to have. I mean, yes, it really is. You put it out there in the world and you see what happens. You let go of the expectations, because it's the expectations even before you write the book that keeps us stuck, because you're thinking, oh, this has to be the best. And then you just keep rewriting the first paragraph or the first chapter. And, and that's something that, you have to just let go of the expectations and let the words flow and understand that. I always love this saying by Rumi. He says, who you seek is seeking you. So
I love that.
the book will find the people that it's supposed to find because they're seeking that. Yeah. And so that's the best mindset to have when you're creating, even in art. Well, it's all art. But yeah, and it's
Yep,
same in the
exactly.
coaching business. It's the same in every business. It's just something that, people, it's something that they teach in yoga, is just let go of your expectations, and let it flow. And that's when it does flow. You describe writing as a magic process because you're creating worlds and people that didn't exist before, which I love. What responsibility do creators have in shaping the way people think, feel, and see what is possible?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, I think, it's the magic of being able to create things. And in doing that, you obviously have an inherent responsibility. So you have to kind of ask yourself, why am I creating this in the first place? Like, why do I as a person feel drawn to create these characters? What do I hope that other people get out of it? And how do I tell that story in the tightest, most succinct way possible? And so I think that's kind of the responsibility, is the pre-work, right? To make sure that you're telling everything in kind of a responsible way. I think a lot of writers, for the most part, in the writing community is pretty aware of, like, using sensitive language and trigger warnings and all that, depending on what their story is. That's obviously like a new phenomenon that did not used to happen. That didn't even happen when I first started writing books. So that's really great, because that's then like your responsibility as a writer to do that. And a lot of publishing houses, for people who are traditionally published, they'll have what's called sensitivity readers. And even if you're a self-published author, you can also hire a sensitivity reader to see if there's anything that you're overlooking, because sometimes, like we're only privy to our sphere of influence, right? We only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't. So if you have had a certain lived experience and you're writing a character that's outside of that lived experience, you may use some insensitive language without thinking twice about it, because that's just what you've heard your whole life growing up. So I do think there's some sort of responsibility into research, and like, going back to the budget thing, I know not everybody has the budget to hire a sensitivity reader along with all the other things that likely need to be paid for. So then it's your responsibility to go read other books in that genre or do some
Mhm.
sort of research. There's research all over the internet. You can figure out like what you should and shouldn't say, like what are appropriate ways to describe different characteristics of people or something like that. So um, I do think writing's the most magical thing because we get to create entire worlds and you just make them out of thin air. It's just you, your brain, and whatever you use to write with. And in that is the same responsibility you would have creating anything. So that's, yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's interesting. I had never heard of a sensitivity reader. So, the publishing world or the writing world, I mean, you delved into it for so many years, but that is fascinating. There's probably others that I had no idea, but that's really interesting. I had no
Yeah, it
idea.
was
So that
interesting
thank
when
you.
I learned about it too. It was, I forget what it was. I forget what book it was, but someone was talking about it and how the sensitivity readers had flagged something about it being fat phobic. And I think a lot of people don't even think of like that as being an issue, like people are just describing physical characteristics of characters, but there are sensitive ways to do that. And it's okay to ask for help for how to do that.
Right.
You're coming from a good place, and it's okay to ask people what's an okay way to describe this. So
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Well, thank you for that information. Well, I know you spoke a little bit about this before, but how do you separate then the feedback that helps you grow from opinions that derail your confidence? Because I remember you said when you wrote your ninth book or you started to get those feelings again. Do you use a lot of mindset tools or do you just, focus on your passion? Give us a little insight into that might help a budding author.
yeah, so I'm a big, big, big believer in mindfulness. It's a theme that runs through almost everything that I do because I used to suffer from super bad anxiety.
Mm.
There's this like, it's a medical term, it's called like a globulus. I forget exactly what it is,
Mm.
but when I get really stressed out, I literally can't swallow. Like my throat swells up
Mm.
and it feels like I can't swallow at all. And it's not painful, it's just this like psychosomatic thing that happens where I get so stressed
Mm.
that I just genuinely feel like I can't swallow. And that's how I came to mindfulness and like learning how to cope with anxiety. And that, like, when I start to feel that way, that's when I know like my anxiety is kind of like off the charts right now. So mindfulness has been something that has helped me in every aspect of my life. And I think it helps especially with feedback because not all feedback is helpful feedback, right? Like, I didn't like this book is not helpful. Like, if that's a
Right.
review that you get, that's okay. Like, that person's allowed to not like your book, but it's not helpful. Like, I
Mm.
don't know what you didn't like. I don't know how to do it better. And sometimes you're not going to do it better. Like, sometimes, like, I don't know if you've ever done this, Jane, but I've done it before where I picked up a book in a new genre to me and I was like, I just didn't like it. Like, there was nothing
Mhm.
wrong with it. I just
Yeah.
didn't like it. And that's okay. But it's really easy to take that to heart and think, well, I'm terrible because this stranger
Mm.
on the internet did not like my book. So
Yeah.
you have to just take it and practice non reactivity, right? Like just read it and not react to it and just decide if it's helpful or not helpful. If somebody says, like, oh, the pacing could have been better, this could have been better, that's helpful.
Right.
So I mean, that's why a lot of people use like beta readers and things like that to get, or advanced readers to give them feedback ahead of time. Again, that's a cost, which is why a lot of people do skip that step. But your beta reader could even be like friends and family, or I know that there are kind of like communities online where people will reciprocate, like, I'll read yours, will you read mine? Let's give each other feedback. I do think it's important to find people who you're in the same genre as each other
Mm.
so that you're getting actually helpful feedback because they know the genre. But yeah, the short answer is mindfulness is key to making sure you separate the helpful feedback from the unhelpful, because otherwise you're just gonna feel terrible.
Oh, yeah. No, it's constructive criticism is what I call it. I mean, yes, to just
Yeah.
say I don't like it, it's like, well, okay, what does that mean? It's like anything. If a chef prepares you a beautiful meal and you say I don't like it, okay, what didn't you like about it? So that, I can understand and agree or disagree. It doesn't matter, but maybe there's improvements to be made. But yes, absolutely. And yeah, you just have to let those go by the wayside. And sometimes people are just nasty and they don't even read it. They'll just say, I don't like it.
That's true
Nowadays it's
too.
just, yeah, you have to be so careful of who you're taking your opinions from, because it's like, well, everybody's got one, but doesn't mean I have to take yours, Yeah. I love the saying that goes, your opinion is none of my business. Maybe that should be your response when you get one you
I've
don't
never
like.
heard that, but I like that.
Yeah. It's none of my business, right? It's like, keep it to yourself. But yeah, 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 you grow and you learn, it's why they call it wisdom, because as we get older, it's like, well, screw it. You didn't like it, but lots of other people did, so I don't care. You just get, I hate to say you grow thick skin, because that's not the right way, but you just have to take it with a grain of salt, like everything else,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
move forward. That's the most important, is that you continue to move forward. Don't let it stop you. So thank you for that. I appreciate, because you're absolutely right. Yeah, you do have to, find something that works for you, that gets you out of that stuck mode or that I'm quitting mode, and just continue on your journey, because that's why you were here. That's, all of us have a gift that we're here to share, and I believe that. And if that's your gift, you just have to believe that that's why you're here and you need to share it. So why are stories so important in our society? Give us your thoughts on that. I have my own, but certainly let us know, because I know you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to hear what yours are too. Stories are, and I kind of touched on it already, but there's a lot of science to show that stories are huge for building empathy. Again, like I mentioned, in a lot of the books we read, we come into contact with characters that we'll never meet in the real world. And our brains don't know the difference between a character on a page and a real person in real life. They think that they're the same person. And so when we read a character we won't come into contact with in real life, like there was that one really popular book where the crawdads sing. I'm probably not going to come in contact with someone who lives in like the swamps of Louisiana. That's not really something that I live in Los Angeles. Like maybe one day that would be cool, but that's not likely. So, like in any sort of meaningful way, you know? And so that book really resonated with a lot of people, I think, because that's a character a lot of us will never come into contact with in our lifetime. And so uh, that's why stories are important, because they build empathy. And they're coming out with new studies now that are showing that like women tend to read fiction more than men. Men tend to read nonfiction. And there are parallels that are drawn between like that is also why women tend to like it's also more like not like in like a gendered way, but like an energetic way, feminine and masculine. It is like a more feminine energy to be more empathetic. And so it's interesting to see it play out in real life where like then women are drawn to reading more fiction books and building that kind of empathy. And then men tend to gravitate towards nonfiction books. And like, again, these are I'm generalizing here, but according to the science, this is what they're finding. And so we're finding that there's like an increasing lack of empathy from people who identify as men. And because and one hypothesis that's been drawn from this is because they do only read nonfiction. They don't read fiction. A lot of men do not read fiction. So, anyways, that's a really long way, and honestly, probably poorly explained. I always joke that's why I'm a writer and not a talker by profession. But um, that's why stories are so important. They're also important to pass down values and pass down history, like all the oral traditions of ancient cultures. Just there's so many important aspects to stories because, again, all of us only know what our own lived experience is. And we can't have anything but our own experience, and we can't have everyone's experience all at once. All of us, I think, would love maybe on some level to be like an Indiana Jones or like a Lara Croft, like a world traveler explorer. That would be so fun. It's also incredibly impractical for most of us to be able to do that. And so we gravitate towards these stories that we can kind of feel like, oh yeah, like I feel that way for a little bit while I'm involved in this story. And so they're so important because they give us different perspectives, different ways to think about things. And then going back to the book club, it also teaches us to think critically about stuff. Like it's okay to not like stories too, or to be like, wow, that person's life is crazy. I'd like to never do that. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are on stories as well.
Well, very much like yours. I mean, in the sense that stories resonate with humans. I mean, you can always provide, you know, stats and data and neuroscience information because I'm fascinated by the sciences. I believe you are as well, because you've mentioned psychology and the way our minds work. But when you take some of the, say the data and the strategies, but you work it into a story, and then people see how it actually works in life, that resonates with you and you go, aha, the light bulb goes on. It's like, okay, now I understand what you mean by that. That, there is, there's a story that I love to tell about Keith Richards, who, and this is a true story, who often kept beside his nightstand a pen and a paper. And he always did that because he said ideas would come to him in the middle of the night. Well, so be it that one night he was sound asleep and he woke up and this song came to him and he wrote down these notes on a piece of paper and went right back to sleep. And when he woke up and he saw what he'd written, he didn't even remember writing it. So he went into the studio and the song was Satisfaction. And it solidified them as an international group. And the science behind that is that there are ideas floating around always within the ethers of the universe, if you believe in energy and things that are out there. And if you are open to these and they come to you, then that is something that we all have the capability to connect our frequency with, because I'm a big believer in what you emit comes back to you. So that's the science. And there's a true story that associates with it. And it's like, wow, these things really do happen. So, yeah, I mean, I love to connect stories with actual things that we are discovering now in the universe and in science and in quantum physics, that sort of thing. But that was a true story. And to this day, he still always keeps a notepad beside himself and a pen, because he says those ideas are out there for everybody. He said, I just happened to catch it. He said, if I hadn't, Prince would have caught it. So
That's you made me remember a really interesting story too, because that's a great story. I love that, and it's a good reminder to everybody that we should be keeping pens and paper by our like nightstands by our bed. But in Elizabeth Gilbert's book Big Magic, she talks about
mm,
how ideas. She thinks that like sometimes we are just like the keeper of ideas for a little while, and she writes about how in this one chapter, she had an idea come to her and she wrote it down in detail, but she was like, I'm not going to write that yet. Like, that's not, it didn't like light her up to write that at that point. And then one of her good friends years later wrote down exactly the same idea. So she'd lost the theory was she lost the passion for it. It had like gone away from her and then floated its way to her friend, and her friend was the perfect person to write it.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and for those who don't believe in this stuff, you have to say, well, how does that happen? But yeah, see, who you seek is seeking you, even in the ethers. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
that's fascinating. Yeah, because I know her books. I've read her Eat, Love, Pray, but I hadn't read The Big Magic. But yeah, that's fascinating. There you go, because it was meant for someone else. But yeah,
Yeah,
so that's what I mean by stories connect us, and they fables as well. You know, they just resonate, and they you think, okay, now I remember. Oh, there's other ones, but yeah, I just really love the power of stories, and they do. I mean,
absolutely.
those are movies. Movies, you can come out of a movie and feel changed, or you can come out, you know, it has to move you emotionally, or it's not a good movie. It doesn't matter if it makes you angry, if it makes you sad, if it makes you happy, if it makes you thoughtful. Those are emotions. But if you come out feeling nothing, and that's happened to me too, I'm like, well, that movie sucked. I don't know why, but I just don't feel anything.
Yeah, you're
You
like,
know?
meh.
Yeah, exactly. If someone listening feels stuck, uncertain, or trapped in a chapter of their life that they no longer want to live in, what's the first step towards rewriting their story? And this might go towards your book, The 1% Better.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. You know, a therapist once said, or it wasn't a therapist, it was a career coach who once said something to me, who she said that if my job felt really difficult, maybe it was difficult because it's what wasn't right. And I think that,
Mm.
I'm also a big believer in energetics, and I think that the universe gives us gentle nudges, and then they like become more aggressive nudges until we're just very unhappy that we need to change. And that honestly is kind of where the idea of 1% better came from. I'm an admitted overachiever and perfectionist. There are things I work on all the time, and so I used to try really hard to like, how can I like, what's a systematic way that where I can set benchmarks and collect data and figure out ways to be better and make myself better. And that was just too difficult. I went through lots of different paradigms for how to do that, and they were unsuccessful. And then one day I was like, what if I just do 1% better? Because at first it was like, well, then you're 100% better in 100 days. And then I was like, no, Natalie, that's not how percentages work. I'm a writer, not a mathematician, but I figured that part out at least. So 1% better is just as simple as, what can I do today that makes me feel like I'm moving in the right direction, or like I've done something that tomorrow I will be glad I did today? It could
Mm.
be really simple things like, for me, a big thing that is difficult for me is saying no, or like turning off my brain at the end, at like setting the timer for 9 p.m. and being like, I'm done today. Whatever isn't done gets done tomorrow. It doesn't matter. And so, do I succeed at that every day? No, but sometimes that is my 1% better, and that's what I did. And so I think if people are feeling stuck or they want to rewrite a new chapter, just start by noticing the gentle nudges about what could you do today that would make you feel better tomorrow. Um, there's interesting science behind why we self sabotage, and it's because our brain thinks of our future self as a wholly different person. It doesn't see it as us, whereas our brain thinks of our past self as us because we've already lived that experience. And so that's a little bit difficult to try and do something for a person we don't know yet. We don't know who we are tomorrow. We don't know what side of the bed we're going to wake up on. So you have to just do it, and even if it makes yourself feel better about what you did that day, maybe you, like, let's say it was the situation I was in, had a hard day at work, I was cranky, I had to sit in traffic on the way home, and I did not want to go to the gym. Some days just going to the gym, even if all you do is go to the gym and walk on a treadmill for 20 minutes, that just signals to your brain, I can do something that's out of my comfort zone, because our brains want to keep us safe and they want to keep us in our comfort zone. And anything that's out of the comfort zone, it wants to discourage us from doing. That's why we make up excuses and all these kinds of things. But that's like the one superpower that we have as human beings, is that we have free will. And no one can guess what we're going to do next. We can do anything we want at any given time. And so that is when you start breaking these patterns that keep you in the places that you're in, is when you start using your free will to go do something different and to go do something that makes you feel good. So for me, something that I've worked on recently is I like to think of it in terms of excitement. Like uh, before us lie many decisions at any given time, right? Like as soon as you and I are off of this podcast, we're going to go do different things. But the second that we're off, we're going to have a bunch of different decisions, right? Like, do I take a sip of water? Do I open my emails? What do I do first? I try to, when I'm feeling stuck, I try to just spend conscious time choosing to do things that make me feel excited. What's the decision that will
Mhm.
make me feel excited? What's the decision that will bring me joy? Because when you do that, you start teaching your body, or you start teaching your brain to trust your body and to intuitively know what you need to do next, and not necessarily what you like should do next, because that's your brain trying to keep you safe all the time, and keep you comfortable. And that's why we're stuck in the same places that we're stuck in, is because we choose these things
Mm.
that are safe and comfy instead of the things that our brain tells us they're hard, but aren't necessarily hard. There's sometimes the thing, like excitement is sometimes confused with anxiety in our body, right? Like it's a similar sensation. So you have to start very small, just 1% a day. Pick something that you're going to work on that day. Or like it could be as simple as, I'm going to be more aware of my thoughts today. You would be
Mhm.
probably more than 1% better if you were just trying to be aware of your thoughts for the day. You don't have to do anything with them. You're just being aware of them in a way that you weren't before. And I think just for me, learning to follow excitement in small incremental ways has helped me when I feel stuck or I'm in like a freeze mode or something like that. That has definitely helped me make some really hard decisions and lead me on a more rewarding path for sure.
Mm. I love that. I was all I was thinking was, when you say to something that brings you joy or that gets you excited, it could be as simple as I'm going out for a coffee because that makes me feel good. It doesn't have to be something grandioso, like, oh, I'm going, to skydive or something like that. It could just be something as simple as I'm going out to walk the dog right now, or I'm going to, walk around the park or whatever, just something that takes you out of your comfort zone, but also your environment. You change the environment, you change your mind. And
That's
so,
exactly
yeah.
it. I write about that. So my most recent book is called Fake It Till You Make It: The Science of Feeling Rich. And I started it a while ago, but it's come out at an interesting time where the world is kind of economically not doing well, and it's going to not be doing well for a little bit longer at least. And so to your point, one of the chapters and one of the things that I talk about in there is wealth and feeling rich has very little to do with actual dollars in the bank. And it actually has to do
Mhm.
with a sense of control and the fact that we often don't feel control over our income. It's controlled by whoever has hired us, wherever our paycheck comes from. And we don't have control over are like if you get a promotion or a raise or anything like that, we don't have control over these things. We don't have control over inflation, and these things stress us out because our brains like control. So one thing that I like to write about, I do it in both books, but it's about, do something like you said, pick something that makes you feel wealthy or feel good or feel rich, whatever you want to call it. And it could be as simple as, like for me, if I won the lotto tomorrow, what I would do every day is probably go sit in the park and read a book. And that cost me $0 to go sit in the park every day, read a book. Or to your point, have a coffee, like set aside $5, set aside $3, bring your own tea bag and get a cup of hot water. You know what I mean? It's just like the act of going to do it. Or
Mhm.
for other people, like little things like, as humans, we want to feel like we're in community all the time. That's again how we stay safe, is by being in community. So that's why being ostracized feels so painful to us, and we try to conform to fit in because we want to stay safe in our communities and we want to feel loved. So even something as simple as being like a regular at a local coffee shop or at a local
Yeah.
bar, and you walk in and people know you. again, you could just go get hot water every day and bring your own tea bag, or get the cheap coffee for $2.50 and then take it home and doctor it up if you want. Whatever it is, you can do. You are then the regular who goes in and gets that every day, and they know your name and all these things. And those we make things a lot harder than they need to be, when all we need, to your point, is to just go out and do something that makes us feel good. How do you want to feel? You can go do those things for $0 to $5 every day.
Yes, absolutely. And just make it a new habit. Yeah, because it's, you're right. We always get stuck in the should and shouldn't, and, and we let that control our lives. So thank you for that advice. I love it. That 1% better, and use that as your 1%, whatever that might be. I mean, yeah, we need it's not a distraction so much as living. We need to learn how to live our lives because we've been too much, put in conformity, and that's just society for sure. Well, Natalie, years from now, when readers close the final page of your books, what do you hope remains with them long after the story ends?
I think what I hope more than anything is, I mean, depending on the book, right? Because the nonfiction ones, I hope that they walk away from those feeling better. I like to think of my brand of nonfiction writing as gentle self-development, because I think that we're hard on ourselves, like hard enough on ourselves than we need to be. We don't need another person in a book screaming at us. So I hope that they walk away from those feeling really good about themselves. And for the fiction ones, I know for me, fiction is an escape. And so I hope that they feel like it was a good use of their time, and they had the feeling that you have when you walk out of movies that you were talking about, where you're like, that I felt this way or I felt that way, whatever the feeling is. Because some of them aren't happy endings, but I hope that they walk away feeling like they got something out of it. So yeah, I hope I've contributed to them in some way, because time is a resource that we never get back, and I work really hard to make sure people feel like it was a good use of time spending some time with me.
Absolutely. Well, tell us, what are your future publishing plans? Because
So I
I'm
have
curious
two.
now.
Yeah, so um, the nonfictions are new, and I'm actually having a great time with them. So I'm working on another one calling, or it's I don't have an official name for it, but it's about resistance and releasing resistance. Um, I have a personal mantra lately that has come to me a lot of times when I'm making things harder than they need to be, which is too often, and it's just let it be easy. Like, I was cleaning my closet the other day and I didn't want to do it, and I was like, in my head, I was like, just let it be easy. And as soon as I was like, this is easy, then it was like not a terrible task anymore. It was an easy task and I just got it done. And so I'm working on that right now, because I think that that could be helpful to people. But I also do have two or three series that I want to keep going. One is my Tawny Monroe mystery series. I have my Sophie Allen investigation series, which is my newest one. And then another one that's more, I wrote it so that my nieces and nephews could have like something that they can read when they're younger. So it's kind of like Goosebumps meets X Files, and it's called the Paranormally Podcast series. And they just go investigate stuff, and that's just been kind of fun to write. So I hope to spend more time with those two. There's just never enough time, but
All the ideas, yeah. It's I think that let it be easy. That's a great mantra. Just to have that
thank you.
in your vocabulary, that's something to have, like if you're feeling frustrated or you're in traffic or anytime. It's just let it be easy, because it shifts your the neuroplasticity of the brain, and it's practice because you just have to keep repeating it. I always say it's not mine to carry if it's something that's feeling heavy, or if it's a you know um gossip, or somebody's being angry or whatever. It's I just say not mine to carry, not mine to carry, and I just
I
keep
love that.
repeating it. And thank you. And it kind of fades away, and it starts to wire those things when things would have normally triggered you in the past, because I've said it so often and I keep repeating it if that's the case. But it's just like, okay, not mine to carry. because it just changes your whole dynamic, because we just absorb all these. And it's just like you said, let it be easy. When you're doing a task, you just, oh, I can't stand this, I have to do it, and I'm doing it, and you make this energy starts to build inside you, which is not a flow energy. You're actually making it harder on yourself, and time goes faster. In fact, there was just a research paper that I read. It talked about time. But if you have come to a task with that mindset, time goes a lot faster. I don't know, whatever it is you're doing, just it tends to, wow, I did that super fast. How did that happen? I think it's because you fight the energy when you're angry. I don't know, but it's fascinating.
I like
Yeah.
that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it, because that was a fascinating study that they did, that it actually time went faster for something that you didn't like, just by the way you approached it. So that would be something
Wow.
really, really valuable in the book, because let it be easy, and here's the science that
Yeah,
backs it up. Get yourself some time back.
absolutely.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Well, yeah, you and I could go on forever, because there's a lot of
We
similarities in how
could.
you approach things, and I love it. Well, tell our audience, Natalie, how best to connect with you and where they can purchase your books.
Yeah, so you could just find me at nataliesaar.com. It's just my name, no underscores or anything. And then also on Instagram at the same handle. I'm pretty fortunate that there are not many Natalie Saars, so I think I got all the Natalie Saars on all of the social media platforms. But so you can find me on all of them. I need to be more active on them, but you could find me there. My books are all on Amazon. And I think that's about it. Yeah, and you could find all like links to all my writing on my website, and I'm trying to build up that email list. So if you want more stuff from me, go ahead and drop your email in there too.
Yeah, and you also have ebooks and stuff like that that can help writers. You were mentioning to me before,
Oh,
so
that's
tell
right.
our
Thank
audience
you.
just a little bit
Yes,
about that. Yeah.
I also have another website called theindyauthors.com. I built it just to help give back to the indie authors community because it's just actually such a wonderful, supportive community. You can find all those there. I make everything really reasonably priced because I know that it's like uh, money's tight and I want people to just have access to the stuff. So if money is a problem for you and you can't afford what they are, just email me and I'll just send them to you because I don't want money to ever be a barrier to people. So that's the indieauthors.com.
Hmm. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that. And like I said, there's so many tools there that can help you begin your journey to becoming an author. And Natalie's here to service you. So there you go. So check out both her nataliesar.com and indieauthors.com for sure. And we'll have that on the Epic Vision Zone bio pages as well. Well, because we're here, Natalie, on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question for you. If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
I think the title would just be like the courage to try.
Mm.
I think that just not even being brave enough to try something stops everybody. This is not writing related, but I have one of the best selling embroidery patterns on Etsy, and it's because I just decided I wanted to embroider. And I made a giant sampler so that people could learn how to do it. Because again, embroider, I'm always very like cost oriented and aware of it. And so I priced it at $1. So it's like the cheapest one on there because I just know that if people want a hobby, like something to do with their hands that's not scrolling on a phone, embroidery is a great hobby for that. And it's also like you could spend $5 to get started. So it's 99 cents on there. And if I say all that just not as a sales pitch, but just to say that like I don't know anything about making embroidery patterns. I just looked at a few and I was like, I'm just going to do this. And and so I did because it felt like the right thing to do. And now it's one of the best selling patterns on there. So I think just and also not everything I do succeeds. I've had more failures than I can even we would need a whole other show of just me listing things I failed at. So
Okay.
it's not all successes. But the point is that I tried and I get a lot of joy out of trying, and you figure out what is and isn't for you out of trying. And if you don't
Cool.
try things, I think that you're in that stuck place that we talked about earlier. And that's not really a place anyone wants to be. So I would just say the courage to try.
Yeah, I love that. That's a very powerful message. And it's the only way we grow. If we don't try
Hmm.
anything, you never grow. It's change. I mean, you embrace it because it's what helps us to grow. And that's why we're all here to learn and grow. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I love what I do here because I love to share all of this information. Well, thank you again, Natalie, for reminding us that the stories we tell have the power to change not only our lives, but the lives of others. And once again, for information and to connect with Natalie, you can go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages where you will find all of her social media and direct contact information. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. Look me up at janeapplegath.com and like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Epic Vision Zone. Sending you much love and gratitude. Until next time, stay visionary, stay bold, and live epically.